Welcome to today's deep dive. I want you to picture a scenario that is probably universally recognizable to you.
Oh, I think I know where this is going.
Yeah, you probably do. So you have a flight in exactly 6 hours,
Right.
and you haven't packed, like, at all. You just throw your suitcase open on the bed, and your brain entirely bypasses all logic. It just goes straight into fight or flight mode.
Absolutely. The panic sets in.
Exactly. You start hurling things in,
Yeah.
a stack of shirts, 3 pairs of jeans, a totally random assortment of chargers.
Stuff you probably don't even need.
Right. And you end up having to physically sit on the lid of the suitcase, literally using your entire body weight just to force that zipper shut.
We've all been there. It's a workout.
It is. But then when you finally get to your hotel and open it, it's an absolute disaster.
Wrinkled clothes everywhere.
Wrinkled clothes, missing essentials, and like mismatched shoes. You expended a massive amount of physical energy, but you arrived completely unprepared.
Which is, the pure illusion of productivity.
Yes, the illusion.
Because you equated the frantic movement of putting things into a container with the actual act of planning.
Oh, wow. That's a great way to put it.
And we do the exact same thing with our calendars, right? We treat our weekly schedules like an overstuffed piece of luggage.
We really do.
Just cramming in back-to-back meetings, squeezing in impossible deadlines, and just hoping the zipper holds.
Hoping the zipper holds. That is so painfully accurate. And, discovering how to break that cycle of reactive cramming, that is our mission today.
It's a crucial mission.
It is. We're unpacking a source material that takes this exact phenomenon and breaks it down into a highly scalable masterclass on productivity, essentialism, and cognitive load.
But there's a pretty big twist here.
There's a massive twist. Because our source today isn't some peer-reviewed cognitive psychology paper.
Right.
And it isn't the latest Silicon Valley productivity manifesto either. It is literally a children's story.
A charming children's story.
Yeah, titled Suitie and the Rhythmic Guide to Packing Smart. And my first question for you is, why is it that we often need a children's book to remind us of the most fundamental rules of managing our own lives?
Well, I realize how that sounds to anyone listening who is currently, say, managing a team or trying to optimize some complex workflow.
Right, it sounds a little silly at first.
It does. But the brilliance of children's literature is its inability to hide behind corporate jargon.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, an author writing for a 6-year-old cannot rely on buzzwords like, synergy or agile frameworks.
Oh, goodness.
Exactly. They have to distill the human experience down to its most recognizable fundamental mechanics.
So the mechanics of cognitive overwhelm or the friction of decision fatigue.
Yes, and the anxiety of chaos. Those things do not magically change just because you turn 30.
That is so true. So let's jump right into those mechanics. The story starts by introducing us to our protagonist, Lena.
Right.
And Lena is standing in Grandma Gigi's attic. Now, the author paints a very deliberate picture here.
Extremely deliberate.
Lena uncovers a dusty old suitcase hidden underneath a pile of discarded hats, and incredibly specifically, a confused rubber chicken.
I love that detail.
It's so weird, right?
Yeah.
But that environmental detail isn't an accident.
Far from it. The story demands that we start in a place of literal physical clutter.
The attic.
Right? The attic basically represents the state of our modern working environment before we apply any sort of intentional structure.
Oh, I see.
It's filled with legacy items we no longer use, like the discarded hats,
Yeah.
and completely random artifacts of our fractured attention, which is the confused rubber chicken.
That is the perfect metaphor for the digital detritus we all carry around.
Absolutely.
I mean, the rubber chicken is the unread Slack thread from 3 weeks ago, or that subscription to a software you totally forgot how to use.
It's just sitting there in the background of your mind.
Completely out of context, taking up space. So Lena pulls out this suitcase, pops the latches, opens it up, and the suitcase immediately screams a musical note at her.
A very loud note.
Just belts out, L-A, L-A-La. And Lena jumps back and says, quite practically, that's not carry-on behavior.
Which is a fantastic line.
It's hilarious.
But it's also a really crucial moment for establishing the rules of this universe, right? The suitcase introduces itself and says, I'm Suitie, I sing what you pack.
Okay, I actually have to pause you there because my initial read on this was that Suitie is a terribly designed system.
Really? How so?
Well, if I open a tool to help me organize my life, and that tool just starts screaming at me, that feels incredibly disruptive.
I can see that.
Like it feels like the suitcase is introducing new chaos into an attic that's already a mess.
But look at the mechanism of what Suitie is actually doing, though.
Okay.
Suitie isn't generating independent chaos. Suitie is a raw, unmitigated feedback loop.
A feedback loop.
Exactly. It's a mirror holding up an objective reflection of Lena's actions. It explicitly promises to sing exactly what she packed.
I get it. So the disruption isn't the suitcase itself.
Right. The disruption is the reality of Lena's disorganized state being played back to her at top volume.
Oh, wow. That hits close to home.
We do it all the time. We blame our project management tools or our calendars for stressing us out.
Right, like my calendar is killing me today.
Exactly, when in reality, those tools are just reflecting the unsustainable volume of tasks we've accepted.
So Suitie is just the output. If you input garbage, the output is a loud, chaotic song.
Precisely.
And we see this play out immediately in what I kind of look at as the chaos of reactive action phase.
The loud phase.
Yes, the very loud phase. Lena has to travel the next day, and instead of stepping back and making a plan, she just starts reacting to the pressure.
She just dies in.
Right, she grabs a handful of socks, tosses them, and Suitie loudly sings, "Socks on rocks, stripes and dots."
Which just adds to the noise.
Totally. Then she throws in a toothbrush, and the suitcase belts out, "Brush, brush, shiny smile, travel fresh for a while."
Notice the psychology of what Lena is doing here, though. She is acting on sheer impulse.
Just grabbing whatever is in front of her.
Exactly. Whatever is immediately visible or top of mind. She is substituting strategy with velocity.
Substitute strategy with velocity. That is brilliant. And the dopamine hit of that velocity is incredibly seductive, isn't
I know,
it?
it feels great in the moment.
Like when you fire off 10 emails in 5 minutes and you feel like an absolute machine.
Right, you feel so productive.
And Lena thinks the loud singing is hilarious at first. It feels like momentum. But momentum without direction quickly devolves into a crisis.
It always does.
The singing gets so aggressively loud that Grandma actually shouts from downstairs, "Is there a concert in my attic?"
The noise in this narrative is such a brilliant proxy for the physiological stress response.
Tell me more about that.
Well, as Lena throws more and more disconnected items into the case, the volume increases.
Right.
That perfectly mirrors how our own cortisol levels spike when we try to hold too many unstructured tasks in our working memory.
That makes so much sense. And the inevitable crash happens when Lena finally looks at the actual inventory she generated.
It's not good.
No, because through all that frantic, loud movement, she managed to pack 3 hats, 0 pajamas, and 2 left shoes.
The very definition of failing efficiently.
Yes. It perfectly captures that work equivalent of spending an entire Tuesday putting out minor fires,
Yeah, answering every notification the second it pings.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then logging off at 6 p.m. realizing you never actually started the core presentation that is due tomorrow morning.
It's the illusion of being prepared.
Right. You have 3 hats, which are, 3 completed low-value tasks and 0 pajamas. The one thing you actually needed to survive the trip.
And if you consider why that happens from a cognitive standpoint.
Yeah, what's going on in the brain there?
When we operate reactively, our prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain responsible for complex planning and evaluating consequences, is essentially bypassed.
Wow, it's just completely offline.
Basically, yes, we are just responding to stimuli. Suitie's loud, booming concert isn't just annoying. It drains Lena's cognitive reserves to the point where she can't even perceive that she's packed 2 left shoes.
That is wild. And the text delivers a very stark lesson here. Suitie actually stops singing about the specific items and sings an observation.
A very harsh observation.
Yeah, Suitie croons, "You packed it all,
Yeah.
but not wise at all."
That is a brutal performance review from a piece of luggage.
Truly brutal. But it forces a necessary pivot, doesn't it?
It has to. She hits the wall of exhaustion.
Right. Lena sighs, looks at the suitcase, and asks, "Help me pack smart, not loud."
Because she acknowledges that her current operating system is just broken, the raw output is too painful.
And this is where the physical behavior of the suitcase shifts dramatically.
Yes.
Suitie stops belting at the top of its lungs. Instead, the suitcase drops down into this steady, rhythmic hum. A calm beat.
Much better.
Goes plan, check, pack, don't overstack. And the story introduces a specific 3-part structural framework. Sort, count, check.
Let's dissect how this framework specifically targets the cognitive overload we were just talking about.
Let's do it.
Step 1 is sort. Categorizing the mess into distinct piles, like clothes, toiletries, and sleepwear.
I see sorting as the act of breaking down a monolith.
Exactly.
When you look at an unsorted week, your brain processes it as one massive, undifferentiated threat. It's just a giant wall of things I have to do.
Which is terrifying.
Right. But the moment you sort it, you say, these are deep work blocks, these are client calls, these are admin tasks. You shrink the threat.
You're categorizing it into manageable, distinct environments.
Yes, exactly.
You're creating mental compartments, which limits the visual noise. But step 2 is where the actual discipline begins.
Count step.
Right, count. The text establishes a golden quantitative rule. 1 outfit per day plus 1 extra.
Okay, let me challenge the rigidity of that for a second.
Sure.
In a creative field or a highly dynamic work environment, isn't applying a rigid counting rule kind of dangerous?
How?
Well, if you strictly say, I will only handle 5 projects this week, period, don't you strip away the agility needed to respond to unexpected opportunities?
I would actually argue the exact opposite.
Really? Why?
Because artificial constraints don't kill agility, they enable it.
Okay, explain that.
When you lack boundaries, tasks will endlessly expand to fill whatever capacity you have. If you don't count, you default to trying to carry everything.
Oh, I see.
The 1 outfit plus 1 extra rule forces you to acknowledge your finite capacity. The 1 extra is your buffer for agility.
That makes total sense.
When you define exactly how much your suitcase can hold, you remove the constant low-level anxiety of wondering if you should be carrying more.
Because you're eliminating decision fatigue.
Precisely.
You don't have to debate whether to pack a 4th pair of pants because the rule already made the decision for you. You've established the physical boundaries of the container.
And that leads to the final step. Check. Using a physical list before closing the case. The text explicitly tells us that packing works best with lists, sorting, and counting.
So what Lena is doing here is fundamentally changing her relationship with her working memory.
Yes. Because working memory is notoriously terrible.
Right, we can hold what, maybe 7 items in our head at once?
Exactly. That's Miller's Law. Your brain is a processing engine, not a storage drive.
A processing engine, not a storage drive.
I love that. When you try to store all your packing needs or all your weekly obligations in your working memory, your brain has to constantly loop that information so it doesn't forget.
Just constantly repeating it.
Right. And that looping is the internal equivalent of Suitie screaming, "Sake yes on rocks" in the attic.
Oh my gosh, that's so true.
By externalizing the information into a list, a sort, and a count, Lena offloads the data.
The hum of the suitcase is the sound of a system doing the heavy lifting, allowing Lena's brain to relax.
And you see the psychological relief instantly in the story.
You really do. As she follows the system, Suitie's raw feedback transforms into validation. She packs her sleepwear, and Suitie sings, "Pajamas in Sweet Dreams Win."
It's encouraging her.
Yeah. She gets the footwear right, and it hums. Right shoe, left shoe, now you're ready to go, ooh.
The system is rewarding her compliance and actively rebuilding the confidence she lost in the loud phase.
It's a total turnaround, but a system can only take you so far before it forces you to confront your own emotional attachments. Right?
Oh, absolutely.
And this brings us to what is easily the most fascinating sequence in the entire text.
The teddy bears.
Yes, the teddy bear dilemma. So Lena has executed the framework. Clothes, toiletries, pajamas, they're all sorted, counted, and checked.
The essentials are in.
Right, the essentials are packed. But then she turns to her bed, looks at her massive, towering collection of teddy bears, and attempts to scoop the entire pile into the suitcase.
It is such a profoundly human moment.
It really is.
We become a little bit efficient, we organize our necessities, and we immediately succumb to the illusion of infinite capacity.
Oh, totally. We think, look how much space I saved by organizing my essentials. Now I can fit all my non-essentials.
Exactly.
We've all been there, you know. You automate a workflow, saving yourself 2 hours a week, and instead of taking a breath, you immediately volunteer for a new committee.
Right, we just fill the void.
But the suitcase is finite. And this is where the author makes a brilliant stylistic choice.
The whisper.
Yes. Faced with this massive overpacking attempt, Suitie doesn't scream. The suitcase doesn't belt out a loud warning alarm like before.
Right.
The text says Suitie whispered, "Space is small. Choose what matters most of all."
A whisper demands that you lean in and actually listen. It forces a pause.
It does. And, you know, we talk a lot about essentialism, the disciplined pursuit of less, but we rarely talk about the emotional friction of it.
That's a great point.
To me, the teddy bears are the nice-to-have side projects. They're the favors we promise to do for colleagues.
They are inherently good things.
Exactly. The bears bring Lena comfort. It's incredibly painful to look at a pile of good things and realize you only have the capacity for one.
You're hitting on the core pain of essentialism here.
Yeah.
True prioritization isn't about separating the bad from the good. It's relatively easy to discard the confused rubber chickens, the obvious distraction.
Right. Nobody wants the rubber chicken.
Exactly. The real work of planning is separating the good from the essential.
Oh, wow.
The physical limitation of the suitcase is actually a blessing in disguise because it forces Lena to evaluate the utility and the emotional return of each bear.
Right. Because if the suitcase was endlessly expandable, she would never have to make a choice.
She'd just take them all.
But because space is small, she has to confront finality. She has to actively mourn the bears she leaves behind.
And that is why the whisper is so powerful. It's gentle, but it is an immovable boundary.
You cannot have it all.
No, you can't. Accepting that limitation isn't a defeat, though it is the ultimate key to reducing stress.
And we see that pay off. Lena actually lasts. The tension breaks.
She accepts it.
She sorts through the pile, picks just one single bear, and places it inside. And then we reach the resolution.
The happy click.
Yes. The book describes the closing of the suitcase not as a struggle, but as a happy click. It just drops into place.
The auditory signal of a well-executed system operating within its proper margins.
Perfect. Suitie sings softly, one last time. Packed with care, ready to roam. Little plans make travel feel like home.
Beautiful.
Grandma comes upstairs, smiles, and notes that Lena sounds ready. Lena replies, with a little music and a lot of planning.
Which is a great summary.
It is. But it brings up a lingering question I have about the mechanics of this story.
Okay, what's that?
If the ultimate goal is just to teach sorting, counting, and checking, why wrap it in music? Why make the luggage a singing, humming entity?
Well, that's because the author understands how human memory actually functions.
Oh.
Yeah, the Rhythmic guide isn't just a gimmick to keep a child's attention. Rhythm and melody are incredibly powerful mnemonic devices. They bypass the prefrontal cortex, which, as we know, is often resistant to new rules.
Right.
And they embed information directly into the basal ganglia, which is the habit center of the brain.
Wait, really? The habit center?
Yes. It's why you can effortlessly recall the lyrics to a pop song you haven't heard in 20 years, but you can't remember the 3 action items from a meeting you attended yesterday morning.
That is infuriatingly true.
It is. So by attaching the plan, check, pack framework to a steady, melodic beat, Suitie ensures that the lesson actually survives the trip.
The music creates an earworm.
Precisely. So the next time Lena faces an empty suitcase or, the next time we face an overwhelmingly blank calendar on a Monday morning, the brain doesn't have to panic.
It doesn't default to the loud reactive phase.
Exactly. The rhythm of the solution will automatically surface.
It really is a masterclass masquerading as a bedtime story.
It truly is.
I mean, we started in a state of chaos.
Mm-mm.
The attic filled with legacy junk and rubber chickens.
We experience the physiological stress of the loud phase.
Frantically throwing socks and ending up with 3 hats and no pajamas.
Right.
But by implementing the discipline of offloading our memory, sorting the monolith, counting our actual capacity, and checking against a system, we regained control.
And most importantly, we confronted the painful but necessary whisper of essentialism.
We accepted that the space is small.
And in doing so, we found the freedom to pack what actually matters.
Beautifully said. And, the book ends with an interactive challenge, speaking directly to the reader.
Oh, right.
And I want to deliver that challenge directly to you, listening to us right now. Suitie says, clap, clap, make your list. What will you pack? Don't miss. Name 3 things you'd bring on a trip. Ready? Go, don't let them slip.
It's a great little exercise.
It is. And I encourage you to actually run this mental exercise. Whether your trip today is a complex project at work, a difficult conversation, or just navigating a chaotic afternoon. What are your 3 non-negotiable essentials?
And as you identify those 3 essentials, I'd offer one final layer to consider, building on the dilemma of the teddy bears.
Okay.
We've spent this time discussing how physical boundaries force us to prioritize our tasks and schedules. But consider the landscape of your internal working memory. Think about your mental teddy bears.
Like the emotional baggage.
Exactly.
Right.
The outdated obligations you still feel guilty about.
Oh.
The lingering, unresolved worries about things outside your control. The non-essential resentments you are dedicating brain power to maintaining.
Wow, yeah.
You are trying to cram all of those into your daily mental suitcase alongside your actual work and life.
But if, as the suitcase whispered, space really is small.
Right, and your cognitive load is undeniably finite.
Yeah.
What is the one mental bear you need to choose today? And which ones do you finally need to leave in the attic?
Because if you blindly keep trying to carry it all, the noise is only going to get louder. You have to be willing to close the lid, hear that happy click, and step forward with only what matters most of all.